Alabaster? I love One Piece. Oh, this is gonna be so much fun. We're gonna save the Duck Princess and kill all the Mr. Numbers. Hang on a second. I don't see any pirates. I don't see any Monkey the Fluffy. This isn't anime. This is jazz! Alright. Well, sorry for writing that intro. It truly was the best that I could come up with, although maybe I shouldn't have rehearsed anything at all. Maybe I should have just sat down and let the review just flow out of me, and it would be pure and perfect in the unalterated form of its own creation, you know? Kind of like... I guess I need to explain a bit what this album's about before that joke really lands. Alabaster DePlume is a poet and band leader and saxophonist hailing from Manchester in the UK. Come With Fierce Grace is his 7th studio album and a direct follow-up to his 2022 album, Gold. Gold was a big step forward for him, not only attaining a broader audience than his previous releases, but seeing him significantly switch up his mode of creation for these albums, as the majority of instrumentals for Gold were recorded in sessions with musicians, where he was using a specific process, namely that musicians that came in recording for the album were not allowed to rehearse any of the material beforehand, and were not allowed to listen to any of the playback of what they had recorded, seemingly for the purpose of capturing more of an in-the-moment sound, and any blemishes or imperfections that came off because of this process would then become a purposeful contribution to the music itself. Gold thematically deals a lot with people's sort of sense of self-worth in the way that people sort of tend to censor their own feelings and not really view themselves as being special. A lot of the poetry that Alabaster writes on this album seeks to directly contradict that. And it works. I've come to appreciate this album more and more as I listen to more of his stuff. But it might be weird to some people that this album, his follow-up that was released about a year later, actually landed a lot more immediately and a lot more strong with me. I like this album quite a bit better. And the reason that I say that that might be weird is that this album is just leftover material from Gold. To my knowledge, the process of this album was after an entire tour for Gold. He went back to listen to material from the sessions that was cut out of the initial release and re-edited all of those into this album, Come With Fierce Grace. So broadly, you have it dealing with a lot of the same thematic ideas as Gold, but there's a lot less polish, a lot less of Alabaster's own spoken word poetry, and kind of a lot more emphasis placed on the individual performances of all of the musicians themselves. And to me, all of that kind of serves to bring out its initial themes in a more metaphorical show don't tell kind of way. This album's thematic through line seems to be about vulnerability, removing polish, and exploring the beauty of things that are incomplete. Here is a list of the personnel that has worked on this album, so I make sure I'm not leaving out any musicians' contributions to it, which I kind of did for that Lil Yachty review where I completely overlooked Patrick Wimberly and Justin Rayson's contributions just out of a lack of research, really. I'm gonna try to not do that for the rest of them. The first thing that the listener will notice on Come With Fierce Grace is Alabaster's saxophone muttering the lead line on Sibo Mandy, which itself has this wavering up and down quality to it. And this saxophone line very quickly sets up two major musical ideas that get developed more throughout the album. The first being his use of generally kind of like soft and whimpered tones as he's playing, where it feels like he's delivering it with sort of this unsteady confidence and unpolished presentation. You can hear a lot of the times just the sound of air being pushed through his saxophone or the little clicky clacks of his saxophone buttons. I don't know if they actually have like a proper name. Keys. I guess they're called keys. And that sort of tone gets shared across a lot of the different performances from the musicians on this album. And the second thing that it sets up is sort of how the saxophone line evolves throughout its repetition, slowly morphing as new variations get expanded upon and old ones get forgotten. This slow evolution of material is very much part of the process of how he set up the recording for this album. And that process is being participated in by everyone in the creation of this music. There's a sense of precariousness to the idea that all of these musicians are just working together to keep the ship afloat. And that means that a lot of these songs have a sort of unique progression to them where there aren't really A sections or B sections. It's just one continuous sort of morph from beginning to end, finding new ideas as they go. And to that effect, I think something that is remarkably bizarre about this album is its use of percussion. There's an unsteady, hypnotic, and sort of klutzy quality to the rhythmic patterns that get tapped out. It's subtle and pretty understated. There's a lot of things that go click or thump rather than bang and boom, and none of it really reaches the scale of grandiosity that gets put on Gold. And beyond that, I think the listening experience of this album is just really solid in general. It starts off establishing its themes really well, not only on Siba Mandi, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but also the song What Can It Take, which is one of the most accessible songs off of the album. Would probably be the best single with its immediately driving and catchy sax riff that carries a really fun groove. And then it slowly turns up the heat on the listener, easing it into some of its weirder ideas, but for every sort of tense and hectic moment that gets created, there's a pretty soft and meditative one around the corner to balance it out. Momoko Gill, Donna Thompson, and Alabaster's own spoken word stuff all make for good grounding points in the progression of the album, but there are still long enough, instrumental sections for you to get pretty immersed in. And those are the main highlights for me. Songs like Greek Honey Slick or Fall on Flowers. To me, that's where the thematic elements of the album shine, and sort of the precariousness of the performance and the collaborative effort in reaching some form of collective expression. Again, I kind of feel like Gold attempts to sort of over-explain the idea that just comes out naturally in this, because there's an element of human ingenuity that gets exposed when you have just 5 or 6 musicians in a room, all just trying to figure out what the song is based mostly off their own whims. And stripping back the poetry that tends to comment on how we behave is also another element that kind of boosts this idea of abstract goodness found within people. Because, what really makes us good as human beings? Anybody? Can anybody think of examples? Because I'm running short. The ideas that Alabaster seems to be putting forward in his own art kind of hint to the idea that it's not necessarily in anything that we produce, any accomplishments that we may have, or any set systems of value. Rather, it's an abstract idea, some quality in our souls or our innate spirits that make us special by design. Warmth radiates off of us and into the lives of people around us, regardless if there's somebody there to narrate it or not. We have innate value in our spirits, in our ability to just be and to carry forward radiating that warmth just by being our complete selves. Like a little piss baby, like the dumbass fuckface son. To me, that comes across in much more of an intimate way by just absorbing the whimpering tones of Alabaster's saxophone, and to feel that warmth radiating by somebody trying to express themselves as nakedly and honestly through this medium as Alabaster is. And this album has made me go back and appreciate elements of that were very much there on Gold. But whereas Gold felt opulent and spectacular, this album feels rugged and maybe a bit broken. I mean, that is what gets outlined on the final song, Broken Again. Come With Fierce Grace comes forward with a vision of this type of music that's a lot more disheveled and a lot less polished, and through that lens, maybe a bit more relatable, and still encourages the audience to find beauty in these things regardless. And I feel like these two albums sort of complete each other in that way. You know, they are the two sides to us as human beings, the idealized glory and the rugged bumps and blemishes that are still a part of us. These albums sort of make up the two sides of the same coin, you know, Come With Fierce Grace is like the shards of the broken porcelain bowl, and gold is the gold that is lined within its cracks to piece it back together. You know, it's like that Japanese proverb. What's the name of it again? It's kintsugi. Thank you, Lana. Regardless, this is my favorite jazz release of 2023 that I have heard so far, and if it flew under your radar, make sure to go check it out. Links in the description. While you're scrolling down there, make sure to push all the buttons that make my channel happy. Take care, and don't forget that you are precious, which is Alabaster's own personal motto. Personally, I'm not going to be that strict. You can forget you're precious every now and again. Just be nice to yourself and listen to some good fucking music. All right, bye.